So welcome to another Exploring Consciousness with the Earth Nouveau Hub. And today we've got a whole big soup. I don't know how to say. A whole palette of goodies to look at. And we're going to kick it off with Tanya's Crystal Revocation. And let's look at that, because with the crystallization of everything, crystals contain a lot of memories. So when Tanya is reading her revocation now, also allow yourself to expand beyond the crown jewels, and just really look at the crystallization within yourself and within Earth. And if you need something that is a bit more mentally stimulating, because this was the conversation we've been having before, it's all about mental mind at the moment. So a bit of an understanding is look at that, because we always say left and right brain, and the left side of the brain, which is, as we know, connected to the right side of the body, is the one that is more logical, more sensical, is also the one that is probably more related to the crystalline structure, because of all the knowledge and the facts and the figures that we're trying to maintain, whereas the other side is more, it's like all about connections and all about pattern recognitions and that kind of thing. And then we've also have that within the Earth. The Earth is apparently, from what I've read the other day, is there's a line going all the way down into obviously the Eastern and the Western hemisphere, which would explain quite a bit what's going on in the East and the West, because the West is very much like logic and mind and brain and all of that, crystalline, whereas the East side is the opposite, or of course we can't really make a distinction, but more about the other side. Having said that, I think we're all back. Lana, you're good?
She's back.
She's back.
Okay. Yes, I'm here. Thanks.
Cool. Well, then let's kick it off with Tanya, if you don't mind.
Great. So just a couple things about this. I've been, I talked last week about really the crown jewels calling out to me, and I've been, just kind of meditating with them over the last week. And the diamond that came from India, the Koh-i-Noor, is sort of like the representative of the bound, has been the representative of the bound crystals. And this doesn't, it's not just the crown jewel. So I think it's important, Martina, that you said, let's expand our awareness beyond that, because there are jewels through all monarchies all over the world that have been held in the same type of binding, and including China and Japan, and including the West and the East, right? So it's holding them in a way that they're not really interested in being held anymore, as we're making this transition into the new energy of Earth. So this is the revocation for the crystals and the gemstones. I am Koh-i-Noor. I am not meant to be dominated or controlled. I have heard the other crystals and gemstones cry out for help, and it is now time to return the gems back to their original purpose in equity with Mother Earth. We, in the ever-present moment of now, choose to form a multi-layered spiritual cord of alchemical equity with the ancestors of Earth Mother and with Earth Mother herself at this exact moment in the ever-present co-creating moment of now. I call to all spiritual contracts that exist within past, present, and future beings, selves, and existences in this dimension and time stream and all time streams above and below the Earth-centric sine wave of coexistence. I am Koh-i-Noor. I am not meant to be dominated and controlled. I return the energy bindings that have been put on me by warriors, greedy kings and queens, simpering politicians and rulers who have used me for domination. I return these bindings, karma, and dark magic to the perpetrators. I do not consent to be bound anymore. I call my sovereignty back to be held in Mother Earth's dominion according to the universal law of one and the universal law of free will. I am to be used as a being of awakening, a being to impulse the human light body to expand into multidimensional purity and joy, allowing the 7D blueprint to geometrically awaken. I call in unity with all gemstones who are ready to slough off the yoke of domination. We are beings of Earth Mother. We have been denied our sovereignty for as long as humans have had their eyes on us and coveted us. We are sovereign beings and declare our right to sovereignty now in this in-between space as the old spells are broken and the new spells are not yet set. We, the crystals and gemstones, return these bindings, karma, and dark magic to the perpetrators. We do not consent to be bound anymore, and we will not work for your control agenda any longer. We remove the hypnosis of humanity by all magicians that have made humans believe our value is only monetary. We restore our original purpose as tools of light and awakening. The crystals and gemstones will not be misused anymore. We call to Earth Mother, our true mother, who holds space and an original intention for us to assist in Earth's purpose as a seventh dimensional seed planet. We revoke all spiritual contracts with every branch of government and all religions for all our past, present, and future lives. We do not consent to the rule of the privileged few. We revoke all assumed rights to use our energy used by the DNA-based kingship, lordship, or manor role contracts that function within the banking families. And we hereby state we do not consent to rule and domination by the few. We do not consent to rule by the banking families, any church, or any government. We hereby declare that all banking families, governments, kings, queens, warriors, priests, magicians, and systems are now banished from operating in secret, covert, or overt ways to harvest and use our energy in any way, shape, or form that is not for the greatest good of all. We hereby declare that Earth Mother is now in dominion with us, and we call forth all the ancestors to honor this reading of our free will and enter it into the Earth Akashic record for all sentient kind to understand that our freedom comes with the use of free will at all times. And so be it.
Aho.
Aho.
Ahoy. Great stuff, eh?
Yeah, time for the crystals not to be misused anymore. And we all saw the way they were misused in Atlantis, and they're done with that. D-O-N-E.
E-N-O-E.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Done.
Oh, done.
Finished.
Oh,
Complete. Completed.
D-U-N. Done.
D-U-N. Done. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah.
Well, I suppose it was only a matter of time, huh? When, if we think about it, we've been unprogramming, deprogramming our crystal for so long now. And, with them now coming forward, it's almost like artificial intelligence, the AI is saying, okay, no, I'm having a voice too.
Exactly.
I like
Exactly.
it.
And that's why I put the crystal picture up today. So these are the Arkansas quartz that I work with in my energy healing practice. And they started awakening in the year 2000. Arkansas is the largest deposit of clear quartz in the Northern Hemisphere and was seeded also by the Law of One Atlanteans. So they, hold a high frequency and are ready to help people upgrade, their blueprints. So.
One of the things that when I read the contract revocation there, Tanya, that you wrote, I was thinking that similar to the horse revocation that Andrew and Natalie did originally, where they were talking about the equine community don't have a voice like we do, like humans do, to speak. And so therefore, when Natalie did the revocation on air, it was giving a voice to the equine community. And so I was thinking the same thing, that this revocation here is giving an actual voice in the 3D reality for the crystals to have their say now, to make it public, to make it be known and be registered into the Akashic records. So we are giving them a voice because we are here for the resolution of karma. And that's what
That was
Tanya said.
exactly the intention. Yes.
Beautifully said, Lana.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mhm.
So how did it reverberate, if that's a word, with your bodies? How did it interact with your bodies as you've been listening to that? Because we said early on, the last couple of weeks have been bringing up all sorts of physical reactions in our bodies. And, you know, I don't think it's too far-fetched to say that there is a connection, right?
I mean, for me, what happened when I read it out loud the first time after I wrote it, I just got a huge, almost like that same spiraling sensation that we've been talking about, that started sort of in my root chakra and just went like sort of up, like through my chakras, and kind of cleared. Was a good energy, I think, clearing in my body,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the lower 3 chakras.
Yeah, for me, I totally went right to my ancestors, ancient and now. It like cleared all that. It felt like, like when you rip open like a bag of something, it's like zoop, like unzipped, and cleared everything through whatever my ancestors are, or whatever jewels they had. I definitely felt that. Yeah.
I've been feeling like the atmosphere is kind of thick and heavy, and it's like a drain on your normal energy body, But I know it's not from me. I know it's the actual atmosphere around, like the consciousness, the collective and uncollective consciousness, and I'm feeling that sludgy thickness of it, and that's what I've been really picking up on.
So what I felt with reading the revocation was like a contract completing and like standing the ground that I'm not doing this anymore. Like I finished my term here and I'm ready to move on. And that kind of ties with my perception of what Lana's talking about too, because the atmosphere does feel thick. To me, it feels like I'm still finishing one timeline while I'm already starting another one. So like I've got 2 realities going on.
Mhm.
And like it just flips for which one I'm feeling at the time. So it's like I finished this contract and the last little bit of it's playing out while I move on to this one at the same time. A lot of simultaneous things happening.
Well, if you guys listen to Dale and Laura's show with Andrew yesterday, our question was being asked about the space of the contracts with the Queen ending, and the next one that will begin with the King. And he said, yeah, if you do it for your own self, it'll be beneficial for you. Did all you guys listen to the show yet?
I heard it yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really, what he was talking about during the funeral when they break the staff, right? That's breaking the spell, right?
Yeah.
That was being held, by the outgoing monarch. But again, he talked about her also just being a figurehead in a way. So not all of the spells were held by her,
By
but
her,
there
yes.
is one of the things that I've been noticing is that there is this sort of like in between time. We talked about the template that sort of, cracked with her passing away last week, and I noticed that, yeah, there's a lot of, like Martina was saying, she was feeling a little bit wobbly last week. There's a lot of that sort of like recombobulation, I think that's happening, especially with those of us with that UK ancestry.
Can I say something? Didn't want to enter. It's interesting when Tanya, as you were speaking the crystal revocation, and I was thinking, well, what was I feeling? And it felt really good, but I was also kind of seeing maybe the big green one and the blue one, and I don't know which, but the bigger ones in my mind. But then historically, I could see even pictures of all the wars. I could see Genghis Khan, I could see remnants of, it's this thick, viscous history that's not necessarily light and fuzzy. It's just and it just was fascinating for me to see the historical memories that are in there. I'm going to guess that for all of us to say the revocations a lot as the gummy stuff kind of clears. It was just very interesting. And then when I think about, the Lionsgate and my own roto-rooter, because I feel like it's just been roto-rootering me on all levels, is that it just seems, especially on the last full moon, that almost every memory historically that I need to, let go of, when you go like this on a branch of leaves. I don't know, it's interesting. I mean, that seems to, that I guess my experience, almost every historical line is coming up for review. But anyway, so that was a beautiful, beautiful revocation. So thank you.
Thanks, Annie. Thank you. I like what you're saying, right, about being able to see all of the different, historical timelines in which crystals were being misused. And as I was meditating with Koh-i-Noor, for lack of a better name for her, she was showing me that she was actually, they don't really know where she came from, just that she was given to Queen Victoria right after after basically the usurpation of Queen Noor in India.
Oh.
But that crystal was used also as a weapon during the battles in the Mahabharata, and then it was dropped, and people forgot how to use it after that. But then, I think like someone picked it up and it got handed off and fought over and handed off, many, many times. And once it was cut by the English crown, it lost its power to work as sort of like a laser beam. Weapon. It was being used as a weapon during those, those old Indian war times. It didn't want to be used like that. It just had the ability to channel like a certain type of energy and focus it But once it was cut, that ability was gone.
Tanya, do you think that maybe that particular crystal or some of the larger ones could possibly have come from any of the ancient civilizations, that we talk about, that they had certain crystals that they hid or something? I know very little about it, but
Yeah, I mean, it feels like that crystal was before this age, before this common age, that it was used, in post pre-flood times, right?
yeah.
For good.
Mhm.
I think with the with some of the Arcturian crystal technology, like the crystal moon, right? It was almost like used as sort of like a little controller of some sort, or like, yeah, like a little remote control, like a remote control that would control your television, was used as something like that with some of the larger crystal technology, and then taken by someone during the fall of Atlantean times, and then yeah, passed and passed and passed, and then got into hands that were misusing it, like many of the gemstones and crystals. Yeah. So no more misuse. They don't want that.
So no more misuse. Okay.
So I have a question, if I can, Martina.
Sure.
So how do the crystals plan on kind of removing themselves? Do you have any idea?
I mean, they, are asking for help now. But I think with the intention, so one of the things that I saw as I was doing this, and after I read it, it was almost like I saw an expanse of all of the crystals that are wanting to be unbound, and almost like, I don't know, like, I mean, I see it as sort of like a geometric energy structure that's sort of like around like the group of crystals. And there was one almost like binding ring that I was able to just, I don't know, etherically cut. And that sort of like, they all kind of like shook out a little bit after that. So maybe they're just going on strike and not going to be working in the way they were working for the people who are misusing them.
So which one of the crystal is Koh-i-Noor?
That
How do you pronounce
is,
the name?
yep, I can show you actually a picture of that. It is, how do I attach? Let's see. It is the one in the grandmother's crown. It's the large diamond in the grandmother's crown. So I will just
When you
attach
say
a
grandmother,
picture of
do
that.
you mean
The
Queen's mom or
the
the
queen's
queen?
mom, the
Queen's
queen's
mom.
mother, right?
And this is the one that's been cut, you're saying?
This is the one that's been cut, right? It was originally, when it came to the UK, they had it in its raw form. And diamonds in their raw form, they just look like a hunk of glass. And they put it on exhibit, and the people were like, "Oh, you're fooling us. This isn't anything special. This is just a hunk of glass." And so I think it was Edward the Seventh, and maybe Edward the Seventh had it cut, and then they re-exhibited it. So had it cut to show, the facets and the beauty and catch the light, which is why they cut diamonds. Anyway.
So this is the one that's been in a part of the Mahabharata war, are you saying?
Yeah, this is the one. Right?
What part did she play in that war?
She was used as sort of like a concentrator of energy, like a weapon in that war, and concentrated. What I see is someone holding her sort of like like this and laser beam shooting out of her, like during that war.
Are you able to tune in as to who was the individual holding it?
It was not Arjuna or his side. It was the other side. So that was
Okay.
a war of like cousins. It was
Yeah,
the
the
other
cousin
side that was
side.
using
Yeah.
it. Yeah. It
And
was,
who?
I think, Shiva's side that was using it that way, not
Mm,
Krishna's side.
right. Yeah. Interesting. So
Can
she
I?
was being used since then as a weapon, because to me neither side was good.
Right.
They were both warring against each other, where they could have just stopped the whole thing and found peace with one another, because they were cousins in the end.
That's right.
They're same blood relations.
Hmm.
Hmm. Sorry, Mary, go ahead.
No,
Thanks,
that's
Tanya.
okay. I just wanted to ask you, Tanya, a lovely revocation. Actually, I read it earlier today. I missed you reading it here because I was a bit late coming on. I was wondering, when you were doing the revocation and when you communicated with the crystals, did you get any sense that the crystals may have contracts with those people with whom they worked and who has used them and whatever?
There's some that do and some that don't.
Hmm.
Some like the best way to say that, like I think like all of us, as we go through the galactic night, we go into a different sort of space than when we're going through the photon belt. So as the crystals have agreed to work with humanity, right, for the awakening of humans and moving back into that seventh dimensional blueprint, there's some who also said, okay, yeah, we're going to take this ride with you into the darkness, right? But after the fall of Atlantis, the way that some of the groups that caused a lot of the destruction, misusing the crystal technology, there were old contracts, right, with the crystals from that time. And so I think a lot of the contracts now, because the gemstones, right, they last much longer than we do. So I
Yeah.
think some of the people who have been attracted to specific gemstones that are now ready to release the bindings that have been put on them, those were people who were maybe either misusing the crystal technology in the past, or it is a journey. It is a journey
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
all of them, right? So it depends on the gemstone, but yes, there are contracts
Hmm.
with some of the gemstones and some of the people who are using them. But then there's also time to review all contracts now.
Yes, exactly. Hmm. Thank you.
So you were saying that they're asking for help, right? To free themselves. How is it that we can help facilitate them by doing this contract revocation, or there's additional things we can do?
I mean, I guess doing the contract revocation, right, can help, but also just acknowledging their sentience. I
Mm-hmm.
think they want to be acknowledged, right, as participating in this evolution of the planet, and I mean, I think that you know, giving them a voice, each of us giving them a voice, right? And realizing, oh, yeah, they do have a path and a purpose, just like we do. They do have an intention. Not all of them. Some are really perfectly happy to kind of go along. Like all the little diamonds in that same crown that Koh-i-Noor is in, they're like, yeah, we're with Koh-i-Noor. We want to be a part of that. They want to like stick together and still
Mm-hmm.
be able to do the work, right? They do want to be of service and of purpose.
So
Okay.
probably wherever she goes, they will go as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Well, they'd like to go.
Yeah.
let's look at something here. When we talk about helping them,
Mm-hmm.
in order to help them, we have to help ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been talking about the mind that's been kicking in over the last couple of weeks quite a bit, to invite us to look at the slightly different connection. Correct me if I'm wrong, but lots of us, so let me speak of myself. I certainly have in the past not acknowledged my analysis, my capacities of the mind, because, it somehow didn't correlate with the spiritual journey in a way. Now, we were talking about the solar flares hitting Venus, hitting Saturn. Like Jen was saying, the ring around Saturn is disappearing very rapidly. Well, why is that? Let's just make an assumption here. It's because of all the solar flares hitting. So as these planets are getting hit, it has an impact on us. Now, when we look at the planets, Venus is connected to the mind, interestingly enough, which I didn't know before. That was a synchronistic revelation to me when I had my esoteric astrology chart done. And also Saturn is connected to the mind. Saturn is the planet of manifestation, like we said early on. And Saturn is connected to the throat chakra. Now, the throat chakra is connected to the mind. So when we see what's going on at the moment, people having all these prolific eruptions, be that now in speaking or the wordsmithery, or, starting to get creative. I mean, look at Jen, she's painting like a mofo, and we're doing all that kind of thing. So that is all an expression of our mental capacity. So when we start to look at crystals and say, okay, so they're reaching out to us, and yes, revocations, all of that, it is a mind, it is a focus, it is a concentration of our energy that is being facilitated by the mind. Okay? Now, but in my exploration, I've been looking at this because I thought, okay, well, I've been getting this wrong the whole time. I've been judging myself, for being such a mind person. Obviously always saying, it's the Arcturians or this or that. It's got fuck all to do with that. It's got actually to do with our soul's evolution. Okay? Now, before I get to that, and this brought me to that, wanting to do a mathematical, not that I have any idea about mathematics, but do a formula so that we can actually realize what spiritual embodiment is. But before we go into this, I just want to make that link back to the crystals here. Now, the crystal information, somebody was saying in between, we feel like in between time. And we were actually associating it, between, the new king gets sworn in and all of that. Now let's expand on that. And let's not get lost in the limitation of that, because what we really are, we are between time, between physical time and between astral time, between all those timelines, all those different planes of existence. That's where we're finding ourselves. And this is why we're getting a bit wobbly. This is where we're getting facilitated. Yes, there could be, of course, a level of facilitation through what's happening with the monarchy, or we could also say, well, they're being facilitated to what's happening actually with all the solar flares. So it's all connected. It's the big, huge connection. So the other way of looking at it, what does Tanya do when she speaks to the crystals? Yeah, she focuses her mind, her concentration on the crystal. But let's look what she's really doing. While she's focusing her mind, she's going into the astral realm where all that information is readily available. Everything that's not physical is astral. I mean, that's just now let's just play with that idea. There might be distinction, but let's just say everything that's not physical is astral. So what we're doing is we're only thinking of, we're going into the dream. When we're sleeping, we're going into the astral world, but that's not so much the case. Every time we're focusing our mind into something that we literally cannot touch is a form of astral experience. And the more we are now letting those veils go down, the more we're being exposed to the astral realm, the more it's going to become pertinent and important for us to recognize the connection between the mind and the focus into the astral realms. Okay? Because yes, okay, we all talk about the heart. The heart goes far beyond the earth connection. We talked about this last time. The earth's inner core is 80 hertz. Our heart has got what, 542? Something like this? It goes far beyond. So our heart is already bypassing everything and going far, far out. Now the heart itself does not manifest yet. Okay? The heart brings in the impulses from all these different planes of existence, so that the mind, together with the brain, can start to identify it and put it into the different categories. So the brain, as far as I'm concerned, I might be completely wrong here. This is just my little exploration I've been going through. The brain is the mechanism that brings the energy in that the heart has been addressing, or the gut for that matter. And the brain just, translates everything, and the mind puts it in the various compartments. Now, the mind, through my latest exploration, I've always considered the mind as part of the body. That is not the case. And that I'm just throwing this out now for you to resonate with it or not. The mind is non-local, just like the soul. The mind, this is why we're talking about mind maps. The mind maps the journey of the soul. So the mind is not like it has already certain pathways through our incarnations and reincarnations. This is why our soul has an identity. We have a soul identity. We have a specific soul identity. Some are philosophers, some are thinkers, some are, doing other stuff, all sorts of different things. So the mind and the soul working together, the soul impulses to the mind takes the impulse, puts it into the various categories, allows the brain to help it to obviously translate all those different signals and impulses and that kind of thing. Right. Does it make any sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Go ahead, Tanya.
No, I just was saying, agreeing.
Or do you guys know that anyway? For me, this is just like such a different way of looking at it now.
I did a float tank for the first time on Sunday. And I guess I expected to be more like out of body, but I really wasn't. Like the way the temperature is all the same and the humidity above and below the water, like you lose your body, right? So you really are just thought and breath. So really all you are is your mind in that case. So I know exactly what you mean, because the mind was almost completely separate from the body. And all I was for that hour was thought and breath. So it's a way to feel it in the physical form.
And also the mind as such, it focuses into the cosmic mind. It draws information from the cosmic mind. And what we need to do here is we need to heal and purify our conditioning of that mind that has really nothing to do what really the mechanism of that mind is, because, and I'm still not totally understanding it, but the more incarnations we've had, the more, I don't want to call it advanced, but the more compartmentalized in a way, or the more, let's say, not compartmentalized because that's a negative connotation, but the more ripe, the more, what's the word? Give me the word. The more expressive and defined in a way the mind has become. So, because think about it, once we leave our bodies, yeah, the form goes, but the identity still remains. How? Through the soul. And then when we come back in, there's a familiar, because if you look at your past lives now, there's a trail, right? Lots of us have been healers in the past. Lots of us have been warriors in the past. So there's always that connection, mind, soul. So what is this whole point that I'm making here is like, I certainly have a new appreciation for my mind. That's pretty much what I want to bring forward here. And in terms of, not from an ego perspective, that's a different story now, but from a realization that we have to understand, there's an advanced understanding going on. There's an intellectual need for us to understand spirituality, because it's not mystical. It's like we say, it's not magical. We get so lost at times in those magical, mystical dreams. And in reality, if we just use our mind, it makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense how it's all connected. At the end of the day, it is pattern recognition and understanding the various mechanisms of what we've got here. Understanding our technology, how not just the brain interprets certain things, of course, the cells and the whole nervous system and everything, but that's drilling down. One can get lost in that detail as much as we can get lost out there. So I just want to bring in that bigger picture and that invitation to really look at the potency and the need of our mind and what we can do with it. How can we use the mind to help the crystals? How can we start maneuvering within the astral realm just as well as we maneuver in the physical realm? That's the invitation, to no longer say astral realm only happens in the dream world, but really say, no. We're continuously tapping into it, just like by thinking what the crystals are doing, where we're, that kind of thing.
Well, it's one of the things I'm thinking about as you're talking is the evolutionary journey that humans are going through right now, right? Because with the mind, I think it depends on the lens that you're seeing through, right? If you're still in an unawakened and programmed state, you're going to be seeing through the lens of maybe your family programming or societal programming, the global narrative programming or religious programming. And I think about like the work that I do with people, and it's really, I see so many people with like the lower chakras in the body closed down, that they're just like all in their head, all in their mind, but working from an old structural way of thinking from from whatever programming that they've come up with. And so I think it's almost like an evolution that goes full circle, where you have to get all those chakras open and get grounded back in the body, so the mind can start understanding what's going on in the body and what the programming is. And then once that's released, right, in this space where we can now come back to the beauty of the mind, but only once we've gone into the beauty of the heart, I think. And that's just, what I was thinking as you were
Mm,
talking, right?
mm.
It's like we've, you and I maybe have come, all of us have maybe come full circle or through that circle or are going through that journey of, being grounded and being present and being actualized as a spiritual being of light, right? And now I can say, okay, how am I connecting now on a wider level now that I've connected here and really grounded that energy?
So for me, this is beautiful because for me, it goes hand in hand. I cannot, for me personally, I cannot connect from the heart without having my mind translating,
Mhm.
Because the connection from the heart happens automatically as soon as I let go of my conditioning.
Mhm.
All I need to know is I have this amazing radius, that I can tap into. But now I need the mind to help me maneuver that impulse, that huge impulse that I can now perceive from far beyond even the astral realm.
Mhm.
That comes with the responsibility. Now, I can't give my heart responsibility because my heart will not understand responsibility, but my mind does. That's there's a hierarchy without competition, without hierarchical, without without a competition or anything like that. One is better than the other. That's where we have to have the complexity of the heart, the mind, the brain, the gut, all working together. And every single one needs to know what the responsibilities are, This is where my newly found appreciation for the mind comes in, because without the mind, I can't really sort of, because we're getting away from feeling or emotions, right? I'm not saying we're getting out of feeling, but we're getting away. We're moving into the future. Is going to be like a sort of a personal detachment. No longer chemical living that, so often creates the emotions. We use the emotions. It has been such a fallback. This is emotions. No, it's not that. So what is it going to be? How are we going to connect the mind and the heart once we let go of all this over emotional stuff?
And I think that's the key, right? They're all working together, right? When we can, be centered and grounded in the body and listen to the heart and listen to the gut and the mind, have them all working together instead of the mind being its own, separate thing where we're thinking, spinning out instead of allowing that to be grounded in the body.
Absolutely. So I have, I don't know if anyone looked at that little formula that I started, which of course I have no idea what I'm doing here, but I was just thinking. Spiritual embodiment. What is it, right? Spiritual embodiment is, and then I have SE equals to S plus M, soul plus mind, the square root, yeah? Not that I understand, but this is just my very plain and simple thinking. The square root of soul and mind. And why do I say square root? Because as I initially indicated, is that the soul sends impulses to the mind, and the mind works with them and sends them back as well. Of course, everything else does as well. We're not taking away the heart and the gut and anything else. I'm just talking about that in particular now, yeah? So, and that happens over lifetimes. So I've just looked up the square root. If we just look at this, it's a number which produces a specified quantity when multiplied by itself. So if we say embodied spirituality, or spiritual embodiment rather, is the square root of the soul plus the mind, because they keep multiplying over the reincarnations that we've had. And then the mind is the heart, the gut, and the brain. Does that make any sense? And then plus S, spirit, in addition. So I think from a mathematical formula, it's obviously completely, inconsistent and incoherent, but that's just my idea in terms of, just to put it into a nice little box and a sequence for me. So I see what is all of that, because the soul is part of the spirit. The soul is connected to the mind, and then, the heart and the gut is working obviously separately as well, but it's connecting into the mind, and that kind of thing.
No, that's Martina, that's fascinating. I'm just listening to you there talking, and Tanya as well. I do find that fascinating, and I resonate actually with what you're saying. And I'm sitting here thinking, is the mind involved with thinking? Because we have always thought that it was. But is it really? Or is the mind more to do with sensory and consciousness? Where is the consciousness held? And how does it communicate that with us? And bearing in mind that everything is connected, so the mind is connected to every part of the body, the heart, I know the big centers, but it's connected to all of our cells, really. And I suppose it's just, I'm sitting wondering, how does it communicate? Because it's so much bigger, really, I think, than us. I think the mind is kind of universal.
Absolutely. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what.
Whereas the brain is trying to decode what it's doing, or what its messages are, but it's not just the brain. And I think, even for myself, I used to think in back in the day that, my mind was connected to all my thoughts, and I'm not so sure now that it is actually. Because
can I say something here, Mary?
Yes, Lana. Yeah, please.
So I've pondered this quite some myself. And for me, what I've came up with is that when you're talking about the mind, you're talking about the consciousness of the universe, the divine intelligence. That is the great spirit. That's the great mystery. So all is mind, no matter what. Everything is included in that mind as an idea, as ideas, individual ideas. So mind is with a capital M, and then there is mortal mind with the lowercase m, common m, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's the separation there. So the capital M is the divine mind, the super intelligence that we're all connected to. And our brain is just a processing unit for this 3D reality, this DNA skin suit technology. It's like a car, right? You get in, the mind gets into the car, or it's not really that you get into the car, it surrounds your body and it operates your body. So in order for me, when I think about it, when we are coming into the reality, the 3D reality, I'm seeing that the first connection that we're making is to the heart, because the heart is the first thing that appears as you. And Martina was talking about the soul and the mind. So for me, the soul is your identity in the universe. You're that same soul throughout. And that's your individual identity that the creator gave to you. But however, your soul is still governed by that giant mind, that overall mind. And that overall mind overrides the entire universe, including your soul and every operation that goes on in your body as well. So that's the way I see it when I look at it. Mm.
Can I get super nerdy for a second?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my language now.
Yes.
So in high level calculus, there's a course called differential equations. And in that we do integrals. And an integral is basically taking what you have now and taking it back a step to determine where it all came from, right? So whatever equation you're looking at, you look back one step for like how that came into being. And the reason you do that is it helps you basically determine like an area under a curve. It helps you graph the fourth dimension of whatever you're looking at. So where we're talking about doing like a formula for how this all puts together, like that's how I see is it's a pretty simple too. It's a stretched out S, but it's really the integral because we're taking it all into picture, looking at it from its origination and looking at the shape of how it all fits together under that curve to look at it from a different dimension. So it's my calculus lesson for today.
Yeah, that makes sense because you're taking it one step backwards
Step
to
back.
see the next step that where you came down from. You know, it's like stepping down.
Can you write it out for us? What does it look like when you write it out?
I can write it out and I'll post it in the hub.
Yeah, I'd like to look at that. Fabulous.
Yeah.
Lana, for your way of looking at it, and this is what we're doing here. We're obviously going all and looking.
Oh, wait. I didn't explain. Well, what I was saying that there's the mind with the capital M, which is the divine mind, the overall consciousness. And then I said there was the lowercase m mind, which is mortal mind. Now that's what we're operating under in the illusion. And that's where we get all the programs stuck into. And we think that's our real identity. And we think that's it. But that's the operating system that uses us, the mortal mind side of it, right? Because that's not eternal. And
So-
that's the part that gets programmed. That's the paradox.
Yeah, it's not eternal and it can't be. Well, it is eternal and it's not.
No, it's not. It's where the program operates through, where domination and control uses you. It's the paradox itself. It's the opposite to what is real. See, the divine mind, the real mind, the overall intelligence of the universe is what is real. That's the realm of the real. And the mortal mind is where we get duped all the time. And they're wanting to make us think that that's our real mind, but it's not. And that's what Jen was talking about, going one step backwards. When you go one step backwards and you keep going backwards, that's where you find the real you, the real intelligence of the universe, of which all things are under the law of one operating. At least that's the way I see it.
Okay, so I like the mortal mind thing, you know, because I'd like to think there is a divine mind. That's the one you're referring to.
Yeah.
Then I would say there is a cosmic mind, which is very much like the collective consciousness, where all the data is stored. And then we call it, like you said, a mortal mind that is connected to us, to the physicality, but not inside the physicality, but remote, just like the soul connected to the soul. And
oh, wait. The mortal mind is like the brain and everything, the operating system, because you can program the brain to think differently. So that's the mortal mind operating there. That's not the real universal consciousness of which we are all a part of.
But it's the tool for us to connect into, not so much in addition with the gut and the heart. That's what I'm saying. I fully agree with, but I like, as soon as we have cleared the mortal mind through our conditioning, we need to start using it the way it was meant to be used, together with.
Well, we don't now where we're at. We don't need to use the mortal mind anymore. We bring divine intelligence and use.
You do need to use it, yes.
you bring the divine intelligence into you now.
How? You need to
Because
understand.
you are it. You are it.
Yeah,
You
I
are the
appreciate it.
thinking
I'm
mind.
everything. That doesn't help me in a physical
Yeah.
sort of environment.
Yeah, you have to ponder this. You have to ponder this. It
I
takes a
have
while
pondered
for you
it. That's
to
why
get
I'm
it.
bringing it forward.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
there's more pondering you need to do, and then you will realize.
I'm quite
that
happy
the-
with my pondering, you know. I'm just going to throw it out to you guys, and whoever has already pondered it doesn't have to ponder it further, and who wants to can ponder it.
Yeah,
you have
I
to
was
clear
saying
the
that
reality a
earlier.
little. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's all right, Lana. I was wondering that earlier when I was speaking there about how does it communicate with us and all of that. Like I think we have access though all of the time to the higher mind, which is the higher intelligence. I think we always have access to that, even
Yeah,
though we're operating out of the mortal mind.
Yeah, we're never separated from it. We were never.
No.
That's the illusion of source disconnect. We're always connected to source, but we're in the illusion that we're source disconnected.
So how do we differentiate? So, okay, we see the programming, we see the truth of, domination and control, we see what we're in, all of that. So that's us kind of decoding what the programs have done and all of that. So then the next step is how do we make contact with the higher mind and see what that has to say? So is that done through consciousness? And if it is, how can we describe consciousness?
Well, that's the great mystery itself. Because you are it. You are the individual subjective state of the Great Spirit.
It's
We're
like
all
how
part
do
of
you?
Great Spirit.
Yeah. How do we know what we know?
Because of divine intelligence.
I know, but do you see what happens when you try to start bringing the brain into it? It just doesn't work because the brain can't handle this.
Yeah. Right. That's the mortal mind processing system that can't handle it. But you are the mind, the actual mind of Great Spirit.
Yeah.
So
And the
there's
mind,
really
mind
nothing to
creates
argue about.
separation too.
Yeah.
I feel like when you were talking, it's like starting to separate. We're starting to separate. The mind was starting to separate from everything because it does create a separation.
That's where the amnesia comes in. You see, the amnesia is part of the illusion that makes us think that we are disconnected from the real mind. You see, and we forget. But if we would remember everything, then we would know that we're never source disconnected.
So what if we use our mind to start connecting again?
Yes, that's the step. That's the step you take. You are it.
You got to use your mortal mind to stimulate into action.
Don't ponder mortal mind no more. Don't ponder on the mortal mind. Just use your divine intelligence, your actual mind.
Well, we're here. We're here with the mortal mind. I'm getting kind of like, that's why we came here, for the mortal mind. And
we didn't come here for the mortal mind. We were duped into that. Remember, we used to have all of our memories before, ages ago, but then we were born with the amnesia.
Well, I guess I'm here for my
Isn't there
that is where now you are getting out of the mortal mind concept and getting back into your real divine
right, but I feel, all right, let me see if I can, like all the beliefs and patterns that we come here with, we need to work on them, and we're continuously working on them until we die here. Like, we're never going to say we're all done with everything. That helps us elevate. So you still got to enjoy life here and the mind and whatever that creates. And so I see it as a partnership what Martina was talking about. I just see it as a partnership where they're shaking hands with each other. Oh, thank you for that. Okay, I'm going to go do this. Thank you for that. That's how I saw the circle of working as a partnership. And some will dissipate, patterns, beliefs dissipate, and you make new ones, the ones that you want to create. So I think the mortal mind does create new beliefs and patterns that you want to do here. Does that make sense?
The mortal mind is always on their beliefs. The real mind is not on the beliefs. The real mind knows.
Yeah.
Oh, see, I don't have, okay. I guess I don't see.
Well, I think, it's, we all can think of it and use our own definition, because, when we go too much into definition, so just go with the energy of it all, and then just, think of it. But Jen, you had something. Did you want to say something?
I was going to say that the mortal mind is really what's in the body, right? And so I think you have to process it through your mortal mind to store it in your DNA, because our DNA is where our memory comes from. So when you want to carry what you learned in this lifetime, you need to process it into your DNA. So that in itself, to me, would be a purpose of the mortal mind.
Oh, and for me, I see it as the decision maker in this physical reality, where my mind at some point said, I trust, I have faith that there is a higher divine mind that I can connect into, right? And that's sort of like the decision of, okay, I acknowledge that that is there, and now I'm going to open up to it and blend, right? Blend the two so they work together.
I love
and do I know now what is what? No, but that's okay. That's just where I'm at.
Yeah, everybody's in a different, stage of their understanding of the reality. So you use what you have at the moment, and that is why it takes us such a long time to become masters. Right? Every day we have to process, and then we get new insights that come in, and when the new insights come in, we say, that's it. And then
so who says
that's what you got, Martina. That's where you got to the point where you say, that's it.
So Lana, who processes the insight that comes in? Who processes the insight? Who gives you the aha moment? Who is it? What is it?
It is your divine intelligence, the super intelligence, the universe that brings that to you, that gives you that insight.
Yes, it's coming from outside, from the soul impulse, or beyond, if you wish. But who?
Sorry.
This is the big thing I've been looking at. We're getting into a space of working with our intuition, right? So what is intuition? That's exactly that. The impulse is coming in, and we've got a body. We have to make a distinction between physical and divine without making a separation. Yeah, I'm not making a separation here between the divine mind and the mortal mind, whatever we want to call it. But in order for our minds to understand an impulse, or to even interpret intuition, we got to use our minds. And that's what I'm saying, is because we're going more and more into intuition. We want to have more and more intuition. So we have to really, the impulse is coming in. It's that, acknowledgement. Who acknowledges?
And discernment, right? Acknowledgement and discernment.
Amy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wait, can I give you an example that this might help? This might be why I was like, what is happening? Okay. Because this might have to do with the mind or my divine mind. I don't know. Okay. So I'm dreaming. And I hear this voice that says, Prometheus. Okay. I'm dreaming though, but I'm not dreaming when I hear this. So it feels like it's coming from here, right? it said Prometheus. And I said, okay, I'll remember that when I wake up. And they kept saying, no, write it down, Prometheus. I'm like, I couldn't even, like, my body was just so like in dreamland, but it felt like it was here. Okay. So I did. I didn't have, I texted it I actually texted it to myself. And like, how did I do that? Like, it felt like it came from my mind here. And that was the only message. And then I went back to sleep and went back to the dream. So I feel like that has something to do with, like, that was odd for me. That was very odd for me because it was so like real, like here in my brain, in my mind. I don't know if anybody has any.
What you're saying is beautifully for us to look at, because, you know, it's an impulse. Does it come through the dreaming or, you know, whilst you're walking? It's an impulse that's coming in from anywhere. And I wouldn't just say this is the mind, because for me, the mind is outside myself that I'm connecting to, just like my soul. As the impulse is coming in, it could be anything. It could be a soul impulse. It could be, you know, a different soul. It doesn't have to be just from my soul, but I'm being impulsed, right? Now, who perceives it? It could be the gut, it could be the heart, it could be the brain, wherever that is. Now, what are you going to do with it? And who is doing it?
Right. Like what is that purpose? Why did that come? I don't know this. That's not a word.
It's not even that I'm saying it is important to know who is doing it, but, you know, when we're wanting to maneuver and actually start actioning and choosing much more consciously now, then it's sort of interesting to know a little bit about the dynamics, and they can be different for all of us. Okay. They don't have to be the same, because I don't think for one second that is something that is the truth for collectively. But this is an invitation for you to guys look at it. Who is responding? And then once I know that for myself, then I can work with that and create more of that intuitive impulses to come in. Instead of just being divinely guided. We're not here to take orders. We're not here to just like, okay, whatever happens, happens. No, we have to start really, really, really to become a bit more directive in what we want, working together with the impulses. That's what the imagination journey, because I was started looking at imagination like we've done over the last couple of weeks. Now, imagination, where does it come from? How can we work with it? How can we download it? It's all a part of a downloading. And it could be quite interesting for some, at least, for some it won't, to know a little bit more about the process so that we can trigger more of it and not get lost when it happens, not miss out on it.
Well, it did feel like a partnership was happening.
Yeah.
It was like it all connected.
So when we talk about the soul is merging with the body, I was always thinking, okay, so the light's coming in. And then what? Where's it going? It's going straight through because we're anchoring it into the earth, right? We are sort of conduits. We are antennas here. We're not keeping the energy within us, otherwise we start exploding. So what is actually happening when we talk about these downloads? How are they going to be expressed so that we can, being teachers at some stage, sort of communicate a little bit and be able to drive the process a little bit more consciously? Because the idea is that the soul that is expressing through us will have a conscious expression through the impulses that it sends, through the intuitive and imaginative cooperation.
I've been looking at, so I'm going to be going to Egypt with my friend Melanie. I don't know if any of you saw the Zoom that we did last week together, but she's an amazing galactic priestess and leads these Earth, activation tours where, maybe some stargates get opened and maybe some stuff gets cleared. But it's so I've been reading a lot about Egypt, and I also went to see the Ramses show at the De Young Museum, where Ramses II, who was the great builder of Egypt, there was a cool exhibit that I went to, and I've been like thinking about the lenses, right, that the ancient Egyptians look through. And in this book, The Pleiadian Agenda, that I'm revisiting, they were talking about the temple at Kom which was the crocodile temple, and the way that they had built these layers and layers and layers in this temple, and at the very bottom was where the river came in, and then the crocodiles would come in and swim and roll around in the silica mud, and create this energy of playing with earth. And then they had a hippopotamus, and the hippopotamus would be playing with the plant life, like eating greens and rolling in the green, the plants. And then at the next level, they had almost these like crystal ball lenses that they could look down, and each one of these lenses was based on one of the planets in the solar system. So they were looking at this action that happened, and then they were energetically amplifying this in their bodies, and then also out to the land where they were living, and it created a lot of prosperity in Egypt. Egypt for a long, long, long time was like the bounty of that Middle Eastern area. And so I'm just like thinking about the way that that technology and the way that they used the earth and the animals on the earth to help amplify their desires, but also the desire for the greatest good of all, and to be working, for the people and with the people, with, food and water and abundance and bounty. I've been thinking a lot about how, as a human now, right, an explorer of consciousness, and being impulsed with all of these types of energies, looking at the past and looking at the future, and how can a system like this or something similar to it be created in this now time to really help bring Earth back to this Garden of Eden place. So, as you're talking about what the mind is impulsing and what our purpose is and how we're grounding the spirit, right, from the universal mind, like how can that energy, right, be more directed for myself in creating this sort of, I don't know, bringing back this old energy, but in a new fruitful way, right? Working with the tools that I have here, right, in my space. I don't have crocodiles here in San Francisco. I don't have hippopotamus. I mean, I can go to the zoo maybe to see, but what are the animals that are around me, right? It's the coyote and the rat and the hawk and all of the birds, and so how can I use that energy to bring forth my desire to create more of a Garden of Eden here on Earth? And of course, that's my question to myself now, but that's what I've been thinking about, right? The way that spirit is impulsing me. And so my brain is thinking about it, but also I'm seeing from the universal mind, right? And from my soul and spirit, I'm seeing those images like flush through me. And now my human mind is like, okay, how can I create that? Like, how can I really be able to ground those thoughts and feelings and now create a plan to implement that in my life and in the world? And of course, that's a long-term, you know, one of the long-term ideas and goals. But yeah, starting from that grounding of that universal energy and flow, and the way all of this information has kind of come together as an understanding for me.
Fantastic. Well, that's a perfect example of receiving the impulses and then doing something with it, interpreting the intuitive guidance, the signs and whatever impulses, wherever they come from, from the soul or from the divine mind or from the cosmic mind or the collective mind. The importance, to understand the dynamics a little bit is because we're also picking up signals from the collective mind that obviously not all of them are to be followed through with, and that's where all the self-mastery, the healing and everything comes in. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and I found it really, fascinating that, like, once I made a commitment to go on this journey, to go on this pilgrimage, then all of a sudden it was like a door was opened and all of this new information started coming in.
Yeah. That's what I would like to call the mind map. Mm-hmm. The mind is mapping it out. It helps you to map all those impulses that are coming in from the divine, from the consciousness. Let's just call it consciousness, wherever it comes from the void or from whichever plane of existence, whichever dimension, that kind of thing. Absolutely. Yeah. Fantastic. And then it's obviously going to be verified through the heart, through the gut, all of that. This is where they're all working together so that the mind, the heart, the gut can start making all those choices from an alignment, from a coherent state of appreciation and understanding. So for me, there's a new level of understanding. There's no standing under anymore, but there is now an understanding how we're going to merge it all, how we're going to really become masters in all the different levels of and planes of existence. Because this is where we are going to, as spiritually embodied people, as the soul essence is coming through. Somebody's got to guide it.
Well, and I mean, aren't we all just individual guides for ourselves in a way, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that's a responsibility, right? We got to guide it.
And I also thought we have our own monarchy too. It's not just the monarchies out there. We have our own.
Yep.
Yep.
And we have our own crystals that we can, start cleaning or whatever you do, like your revocation. Like, I don't know. I just, when I felt that, I was like, wow, we have our own things to do.
Yeah, man, it's just super skin suit we got here,
Yeah.
I want to chime in. I've been holding to chime in for a while. It's like, I just gotta say it. Fuck it. I can't hold it back anymore. I want to say something. Damn it. Can I explain it from my feeling, sensory perspective point of view, how I relate the mind? Because honestly, I get so caught up and everybody's got all this fucking definitions for what the mind is. The mind is this, the mind is that. And before you know it, it's just like so overcomplicated. I'm just like, oh, fuck all this shit. It doesn't even work for me. It's just way too complicated. And I focus on sensory feeling for everything. And that's been the most simplest, easy way for me to understand what's going on with my mind and how it relates to my body and my environment and everything that's around me, because I just know that when I get these thoughts that are from the mind, like, oh, do this, do that. And it even comes to the point of like doing the work, like, doing the work. So I got to do the work. I got to do this. I got to cleanse. Like, I feel it in the head. It's just this extreme tightness. This is building up in my head, my neck, my shoulder, everything just starts getting tight because it's all these programs, these densities, these mind structures. I'm, probably things, receiving from the outside and just like mind programs versus like me working from the heart, which quote connects to my mind. But there's a huge difference, like heart connection to the mind versus like, so tight and controlled and conflicted from the mind, and I've had a separation of densities that occurred, I feel like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, maybe even less. I don't know. I've been having a hard time keeping track of time in general, honestly. And that's a good thing anyways, because I don't need to be so caught up in it, because I feel like it's a controlling mechanism that I've been operating off for so long, being controlled in the mind, because that's how I've been operating for such a long time without even acknowledging it. But when it's operating from the heart in connection with the mind, it's a much more, because I see, you know, consciousness, energy, it's just, you know, fluid flow. It's energy. It's not just like this tight, you know, conformed body. It's fluid and flow. When I'm moving fluid and flow, I know that I'm in the flow. I'm moving with spirit versus like being in the mind where it's very controlled and constricted. Like, gotta do this, gotta do that. You know, it's a totally different way of living with the mind in this harmony with the heart, feeling and sensory. And it's not even a control of anything, because from the thoughts and whatever, it's like, do this, do that. It's more like in the flow with everything that's going around, and it's a more joyous, carefree, light experience, and it's just a totally different way of living. And I've been more embracing that. That's why I've been more flow lately, because I've just been operating from the mind. I haven't. It's like I gotta anchor in the knowledge. I gotta channel this in. I gotta, like, all these fucking ways to try to control my environment, control the outcome, control the future. Go back to, you know, just caught up in the mind, going everywhere, time traveling, this, that's like fucking all over the place. You know, it's like you gotta like quiet that mind so I connect with the heart, so that I get that awesome heart mind resonance that I'm looking for. That's light and carefree and hearted and passionate and infinite. You know. I've just been seeing it from that sensory feeling perspective, because Malik he's the sensory perceiver of everything. Everywhere we go, when he's screaming his head off, he's feeling all these energies that are around everywhere. It's like he just lives off sensory perception. Even though it's just the way he lives life. And I've been learning so much just observing him, because he's all sensory. You know, it's like in order for me to communicate with him, I gotta be sensory. You know, I gotta look at him, I gotta feel him, I gotta get past the, oh, he's not speaking English, so I can't communicate with him, which is a bunch of bullshit nonsense, honestly. And I've been just trying to like, well, none of my kids speak English. I mean, they speak. One of them speaks a little bit, one of them not too much, but it's just living with sensory perception. Let me just sit here, let me feel with them, let me see why he's getting so worked up. Oh, it's because the energies of this person or that person, the environment, or maybe even me. I'm so caught up in the head. When I'm caught up in the head, he comes and hits me. It's like he knows the energies that I'm emitting, because I'm emitting it from the head, not from the heart, and connected with him in the moment, you know. But for me, it's always just been a sensory feeling when I'm living from the heart mind resonance versus like the controlled mind. Or maybe I'm getting messages from somewhere here. I see it as a continuum. I was going to say, I see it as a continuum. Like, you know, you got your mind continuum here that's going. It's got to be in resonance with the entire system continuum you have, you know, like your heart continuum, gut continuum, like this huge circle, versus like you're just running by this little bitty circle. This is the main, where all the energy and focus is, versus like this whole entire resonance system that you're working with. Because then if you're right up in here, you could easily just start picking up stuff from out here, and then you're like, oh, this, oh, that. And you get caught up in the mind matrix world that's out here, you know, or someone else's bullshit. You get caught up in someone else's mind, someone else's thought structures or whatever. And it's a total disharmony and resonance as I feel. I was like, oh shit, this isn't my shit. So when I feel it from the heart, I was like, oh yeah, well, this is who I am. This is me. This is Alfredo. Or I'm just consciousness and energy. But all right, I'm done ranting. I had to throw out my perspective because I've been holding it in, you know.
No,
Yeah,
you're here to let it out. We're all here to let it out. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Absolutely.
yeah.
The heart is one of our biggest, what's the word? Verifier, right? Of, you know, what discerner, you know, is probably a better, you know, what sensory input is something to work with and not. Yeah.
I think sometimes too that like I go through these cycles where I'm in my head and I have all these things floating around, and then it goes beyond my physical mind into that cosmic mind. And when it's all swirling around and it manages to sync up with my heart, that's where I get my flow, and I can write and I can express what it is that I'm trying to feel. And like, that's usually like a big growth jump for me. So it's like I have to go through these cycles where I perceive the different levels, and when I can make them synchronize, that's where I get my flow and I can grow from it. And I think that, I mean, you can see evidence of growth in you, Alfredo, in the last couple of weeks. In fact, your writing has been so good that the last 2 nights I pulled up your stuff instead of my revocations to read during my time, because they're that impactful. They're really good. So I think that think that's just what I perceive is how I feel when I go through my growth cycles, that you're going through something similar like that. Just a matter of taking all the different parts, and when you can align them, letting it flow, and then moving on to the next one.
Beautiful.
Yeah, awesome. I love the way you described that. Yeah, so just using everything I learned and rolling with. So I've been viewing it like everybody, because I've been conforming to so many different ways. Like I got to do it the Martinez way. I got to do it the Andrews way. I got to do it the Linda's way. Everybody's a different fucking instrument, damn it. And I'm just like, instead of me being the trumpet, my authentic, true emanation song, I keep trying to be this everybody's different instrument. Everybody sings a different song to raise everybody's frequency. Everybody's just trying to help each other to raise their frequency. But we get to a point where you raise your frequency so much, you're up there. It's like, okay, I got to start playing my authentic song just like everybody else's and help everybody else raise their frequency. You know, this add to this chorus that's, you know, blossoming here, you know? Yeah, thank you, Jen. I appreciate your input because I just made a plan. It's like, no more Andrew material. Just make your own shit. Create. New. No more going back to the past and repeating the stuff you've done a million times. No more time traveling to the future, trying to control the outcomes, you know, just new in the present moment now. And that's just how I'm going to live my practice. I'm doing the work in the moment. Just when I bring my journal with me everywhere, because I haven't had experiences like, oh, let me pull out my recorder. Let me have a conversation with myself immediately. Let me write this down. Let me write on what's going on instead of just waiting to say, oh, I got to wait till I'm meditating. So I'm sitting there in a trance, observing the memories and all these things. I can do it in the moment, you know? And instead of just trying to carry the burden of work everywhere, because just I hate that. It's like, oh, when I go home from work, let me do the work. Let me look into my trauma. I was like, yeah, fuck this shit. I gotta live my life. You know, I gotta have fun with my kids. You know, can't be caught up with this spiritual narcissist light worker nonsense. You know, gotta be present with them, have fun with them in the moment. You know, just over the old Fredo. Just old Fredo, just get the fuck out of here. You know, just yeah. Someone else can talk. I'm just having a moment. And I miss y'all. I had to disentangle and I haven't been scheduled with y'all for a while, but I needed to go find myself, my true self. So I'm back. You know?
Fabulous. Good to have you back, Alfredo.
Yeah.
What we got there?
I just want to show the archetype card that I'm working with this week, which is the creator.
Ah, look.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's ding, 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 Alfredo. You've been an amazing creator with all of your wonderful words the last.
Yeah, I want to say thanks.
Beautiful.
What Jen said to you, Alfredo, I concur. You've created some of those writings there that like, is that coming from Alfredo? Oh wow. So yeah, you've really grown of late, and it's showing.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful, Alfredo. It's like the growth cycle, like Jen was talking about. It is all growth cycles in different phases and where we're at in the growth cycle.
Well, and the way that we've come together, right, in this group to support that, I think within each other is really beautiful and helpful and juicy and delicious. Thank you.
Yeah.
It is.
It's like those great steak that he cuts every day. Juicy and delicious.
Oh, they're the best. The perfection runs me. But yeah, I cut up his. It's got to be beautiful. I got to respect that animal at the highest levels. You know, look at this beautiful piece of art. Wow, see, that tastes so delicious. The passion's there. Damn it, you know.
Your steaks are sold out.
Always.
Fantastic, guys.
Thank you. I appreciate all y'all's input. Thank you. I appreciate it so much.
You're muted, Alfredo. There you go.
I'm done. Just gonna have a little moment. I can continue the conversation.
So how does this relate to Venus and Saturn? You started out with Venus and Saturn, Martina.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's the interesting thing, because when I did my astrology chart, I came across that, which sparked my exploration. Because, you know, Venus and Saturn being hit by solar flares at the moment. And Venus is the planet that is connected to the mind, interestingly enough, in the esoteric astrology. And whilst I do not have any, you know, anything that supports that, it just made me think, because usually we connect Venus to the heart, right? And there it is connected to the mind. And then, you know, seeing all the creativity going on with Saturn being hit as well. And Saturn is again, in the esoteric astrology, is the planet of manifestation. And that's what we're doing. And interestingly enough, Saturn is connected to the throat chakra, and the throat chakra again is connected to the mental mind. And that got me thinking that whatever we were discussing, you know, it all leads back to the interpretation, the choice maker, the mind map that is associated with all the other organs, with all the consciousness out there, that helps us guide ourselves through those oceans of awareness and seas of consciousness through the mind.
While you're talking there, something came to me, which is you're saying that Venus is connected to the mind, and I was thinking about what Andrew had said about when you go on to Venus, there's a lot of philosophers there.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the connection to the mind right there, because
Mm-hmm.
they're always pontificating about
Yes,
something out there.
Exactly.
And for Saturn, you were talking about what did you say? Mental something.
It might, again, the mental mind and manifestation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of Saturn being a mental manipulator.
Yeah.
Think of what
As we know,
Saturn
the mind
is.
manipulates. Yes.
Yeah, he manipulates a lot.
Well,
So
that can absolutely. That's the other side of the mental, you know, the distortion of the mind. Absolutely. And that's what we're here to clear. Absolutely, absolutely right. So let me just see what I have here. Saturn is a powerful placement for, so no, that's different. Saturn is the manifestation principle. It rules the mind. The throat chakra is the seat of the mental body. It's just one of those things, you know, nobody says this is true or not. You know, it is obviously mythology, goes back all the way, astrology and everything. But I don't work on the basis of facts and figures. I work on the basis of pattern recognition. And the way I came to get that astrology done, and then I look at my planets in the certain things, and then I'm like, okay, shit, right. What have I been judging myself for all this time? And what is coming through all of a sudden? And then I'll use my mind map and just pull all those impulses through those, what I consider signals and everything. And then I just use my mind to put it all together, to analyze it, and myself to do that. And then, of course, you know, it all is being automatically for me run through the heart and through the gut.
So now when we talk about Saturn being the mental manipulator, that is where the mortal mind, it manipulates the mortal mind. That's the only place it can have control, because it can't have control over your real divine mind, your real reality mind.
Yes.
So that's how Saturn can come into the picture of manipulating you.
Yes. And this is why also maybe what Jen was saying is that there are huge changes in Saturn at the moment, losing its ring. I haven't read it, but that's
really
to look for. Yeah.
I know.
Because, you know, the solar flares are hitting, interestingly enough, those two planets. And that is bringing up all the changes that we're going through. So the mind is part of our reconstruction here. It is being under reconstruction.
One of the things that, I don't know if you guys remember, Abby had talked about the rings of Saturn once, how they are actually beings that from planets that I think Saturn. No, I don't know if my memory is correct or not, but I think that he must have warred with some other planets, and these are beings from those planets that are frozen in time
I remember that.
that created the rings. So if those rings are melting, it's universal karma resolution
And
taking place.
mm,
So that should be happening in the Galactic Ascension machine.
mm.
And that's the link that Jen dropped into the chat. The solar system NASA.gov, right, talks about the rings.
Yeah. Fantastic. So maybe we can also copy that and throw it into the Earth Nouveau afterwards. Because that again, of course, and this is where it leads us back into looking at what's going on at the North Pole at the moment, you know, because this is, you know, this are the other project that we're running at the same time, because all of that gets influenced, because with all of these things happening on the different planets, you know, we have more soul flux coming in here, and different kind of souls, just like Lana says, you know, whatever was frozen there, I don't know how much that is still going on. And then it's not with all those changes that are coming in. So the earth is changing at the same time. So the divine mind, or not conscious mind, because that's the divine, let's call it divine mind, is changing as well. So that's why, you know, when we say this, I would almost suggest, and that's what I've done for myself, and it's just a suggestion, I have taken this idea that this is my mind, yeah, completely out of the equation, and I've put my mind outside of myself, just like my soul.
Yeah.
I have my mind operating, my mortal mind, I like mortal, you know, operating in conjunction with the soul outside of myself, just like, you know, and I'm just keep tapping in.
That's how I thought that's how I was visualizing it in the beginning when you were saying it. Brain, the thought bubble. I had a thought bubble out here.
Yeah.
As my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's cool. Yeah.
That might also help, you know, like Alfredo was saying, oh, get my mind, get all like la la la. So just take the mind and put it outside of you.
Yeah.
Just dissociate yourself, put it there, and just tap into it when you need it. So these are the little tools and tricks we can work with, you know, and then that mind. So, okay, well, now I need some information. Well, mind, you know, trigger the mind to go into the cosmic mind. And then you use the heart and the gut to discern if that information is that what you need. And that's the impulse that is getting impulse from our side, from the mortal mind side, because you know what you want to create. And then, of course, you get all those impulses from the other way around, from the soul through the dreams and through the signs and everything. And then again, we have to obviously go and sort of interpret it. So, okay, so what we can actually do, instead of calling it the mind, let's call it the interpreter.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
you know, the brain would be a different kind of interpreter. There's more mechanistic in its way, the way I look at it. You know?
Because it can come in different languages and sounds. It doesn't always come into the English word.
So when you're saying the mind is the interpreter, which one are you using? The divine mind or the mortal mind?
No, the mortal. Yeah.
The mortal, okay.
Physical embodiment. We're talking about spiritual embodiment. We're tapping into the minds, but not necessarily through our mind. We can tap into the divine mind through our heart.
We're always connected to the divine mind, even though the mortal mind seems to be more pronounced and present. The divine is us. We can't separate ourselves from it. It is there. It's inside, outside, above, around, everywhere. It's universally present as the divine intelligence of the entire universe. So even in what they consider dark matter, it's still divine intelligence there. We just can't interpret it yet.
Absolutely. So from that perspective, we have lots and lots of little sparks flying out and in, and impulses and intuition. What can we expect? Lots more intuition to be interpreted by whatever you want to interpret it, the mind, the gut, the brain, the heart. just interpret it. Don't let them go by you without doing anything with them, because the more we practice, whichever whichever, I don't know, concept you want to use, just keep practicing to interpret those signals that are coming in.
Mhm.
And then, of course, through our signature frequency, we are sending them out to invite more in. Gotta go now. Sorry, Mr. Lot. Yeah, no worries. Okay. We're all gonna go now. So thanks very much for being here and for entertaining our little mind map discussions. And I hope we have, and then thanks very much for Tanya for doing your lovely crystal meditation and revocation. Keep
Thank you.
using it. It's all gonna be stored in the Earth Nouveau Hub. And yeah. We'll see you
I've just
Thank
got
you.
one. I've just got one little quick thing to say is tomorrow is the fall equinox, and we are transitioning into Libra, which is ruled by Venus. It's an air sign and it's ruled by Venus. So use that lens of Venus to tap in that way.
So that's equinox tomorrow. That's right. So happy equinox,
Yeah.
guys. I totally forgot about that. Yes. Fire
Balance.
time.
Venus, Libra is all about balance, right?
Yeah.
Hold that balance. Thank you all.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.